بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. First, I offer my condolences to you for the demise anniversary of Lady Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha. May Allah enable us to follow her example and benefit from her shafa'ah. I am now in Mashhad and remembering you in my ziyarat. I do my ziyarat on behalf of all of you, and inshallah we pray for a beneficial and blessed inshallah session today. Ayatollah Mutahari rahmatullah alayh continues in this part the discussion about perfect man according to the School of Socialism, and starts the discussion with the next school, which is Existentialism. Of course, the discussion about existentialism is just introduced, and then in the next lesson he studies this in more details. You remember that for socialists, the main issue is how to get rid of problems by removing private properties, personal ownership or possession. They think all the problems start when people started owning things. In the past, there was a period that maybe they had public or common ownership, but when people said, this is my house, not your house, this is my money, not your money, and this is my water, my land, and not yours, and then some people had extra, some people had less than what they needed, so some people became richer, some became poorer. So lots of problems started with this concept of ownership, meaning personal or private ownership. We already mentioned some points about this. He continues here and he says, according to this school, if you don't want human beings to become just, few egos that live together, you must avoid human beings to have ownership. But according to Islam, we say ownership is important, and it is true that sometimes can be also misused. But the main problem is not ownership. The main problem is not what I own or what you own. The main problem is what owns us. According to Islam, we need to solve the major problems by freeing people from their belongings. It can be money, it can be other things. So for example, Ayatollah Mutahari says that suppose if we have a socialist state, like, for example, he mentioned China. Of course, in China, in the time of Mao, they had lots of restrictions for private ownership and properties. Just suppose we cancel it. But then the Prime Minister of China, who may not own anything in that time, then they changed their policy. But the one that didn't have any personal house or ownership, but didn't he have lots of other privileges and lots of other rights and things to enjoy. For example, to be very famous, to I don't know, every day thousands or millions of pictures were taken from him. It was on the newspaper, on TV, magazines. He could decide about lives of people, jobs of people, lots of things. So just canceling properties and ownership is not going to make sure that everything that this person is going then to do is going to be ethical and moral. So we are not saying that malikiya or possession or ownership is not important, but we say that this is not the only issue and this is not actually the main issue. Ayatollah Mutahari uses a kind of expression in ilm al-nahw, in syntax. We say muzaf and muzaf ilayh. Sometimes we connect between two things where there is exclusiveness. For example, we say my book, my car, your book, your car. So he says the problem is not book or car. The problem is what owns me, not what I own. So book is not problem, car is not problem. That thing that owns me is the problem. So the problem is not in mudaf. The problem is mudafun ilayh. When I say my book, kitabi, kitab is mudaf, book is mudaf. Ya, which means my, is mudafun ilayh. So the problem is not in mudaf. The problem is in mudafun ilayh, which is me, you, what we are owned by. Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam had a very difficult life for the most part. There was a time that he had no food, nothing to eat with his family, with his wife and children, except bread. And they just had sometimes just enough to eat, nothing more, nothing saved. And sometimes even they had to share this with other people. But a time also came that Amirul Mu'minin was Khalifatul Muslimin, and he had access and control over public treasure house, Baytul Mal. If he had wanted, at that time he could have had the best of food, the best of houses, the best of camels, and etc. But Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam didn't let power or money own him. He was always careful about people's rights and people's comfort instead of just thinking about himself and his comfort. He says, نه آن روزی که چیزی به او تعلق نداشت. Neither the day he didn't own anything. و نه آن روزی که بیش از همه مردم اشیا در اختیارش بودند. Nor the day that more than anyone else he had things in his hands. He was never thinking about himself. He was thinking about us. He was forgetting his own personal ego, personal interests, convenience, and thinking about how people's condition can be improved. He says, you should not think that only money is a problem. Sometimes can be money ownership. Sometimes can be, for example, love for a woman, for example, or women, or on the women's side, for example, maybe love for men, but maybe in the history more men had power, and sometimes they were more influenced by their love for certain women. They were happy to sacrifice everything, even lives of people, money, to please a woman, for example. So You cannot cancel all social problems with just canceling ownership. There are other things that can influence and can own people and bring disturbing disorders in the society. He says we have seen that in some places that they try to cancel personal ownership, they didn't manage to unite. So we was not formed out of me, my personal ego, and someone else's ego, etc. So it's not that if you don't have me, then it becomes we. It's a matter of how you do it. He says we need to form that collective identity. In the lectures about collective nature of wilaya, alhamdulillah, we have explained how Islam wants us to think as a group, as a community, and not just me or maximum my family or maximum my tribe. No, we as human beings, we as believers. So Islam is aiming at establishing we, like socialists. But the problem is that socialists, they have reduced everything in this, and also the way they want to achieve this is a problem. But if we consider this as one of the ideals and work towards it through proper means, then that's great. Ayatollah Mutahari, as an example to illustrate that Islam also is interested in making collective approach, collective identity, for example, collective attempts, refers to the famous ayah that we use for dialogue among people of different religions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم. Tell all people of the book, any person who believes in divine revelations and divine scriptures, come to the common word between us or among us. Sawa, kalimat sawa, common word. Baynana wa baynakum. What is common word between us and you? What is that common word that we should get united around it? Allah na'budu illa Allah wa la nushrika bihi shay'a. We don't serve, we don't worship anyone other than Allah. We don't associate any partners to Him. We don't take any of us as our lords other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is an invitation for forming a kind of unity among common word. Allah is common among us. Ayatollah Mutahari says the Prophet was not asked to say, you must believe in my God, you must believe in my Lord. No, He is our Lord and your Lord and everyone else's Lord. He says, if for example Rasulullah was saying, you must all believe in, for example, my personal ideas, or you must all use Arabic language, then it was not going to be accepted by all. It was not going to be universal. But God is universal. And if we turn to God, we can become one group. So if you want to get rid of me and shape and form we, first me should disappear in Him, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then through Him we will be united. As long as we have our egos, and we cannot unite in God, and then we cannot unite with each other. So first step is get rid of your ego, unite with each other in God, and then you can be united. He refers to a poem by Sa'di, great Persian poet who has Gulistan and Bustan. He has this famous poem, it's universally known, it's very appreciated. You find it on the wall of United Nations headquarters in Geneva. He says بنی آدم اعضای یکدیگرند که در آفرینش ز یک گوهرند. Children of Adam are all from the same essence, and therefore they are like organs of the same body. چو عضوی به درد آورد روزگار دگر عضوها را نماند قرار. If one part is in pain, other parts will be restless. تو که از محنت دیگران بی غمی نشاید که نامت نهند آدمی. You who does not feel any pain when others are in pain, who has no sympathy with those who are in pain, you are not, entitled to be called human beings, one of the human beings, because a human being has to have sympathy with those who are in pain. So this is a very beautiful, very wise poem. There's only one issue, and that is, he says Bani Adam, children of Adam. But the reality is that children of Adam are not as such so united and so much sharing feelings and emotions and pains. This is something that can be true about believers. And indeed, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam seems to have inspired Sa'di by this hadith. مثل المؤمنين في توادهم وتراحمهم كمثل الجسد إذا اشتكى بعض تداعى له سائر أعضاء جسده بالحمى والسهر. The example of the believers in their friendship and mercy and affection is like one body. If part of body is in pain and complains, other parts of the body will support him and show sympathy by having fever or not being able to sleep during the night. This is the way the body shows sympathy. So maybe Sa'di should have said, instead of Bani Adam, that believers are like this. But maybe Sa'di wanted to say that believers are true human beings, for example. Anyway. He mentions an example to show that if non-believers try to unite, there is a chance that this may be taken as a kind of advantage by one party. It is sincerity of believers that makes sure that the relation remains healthy. Otherwise, he says that maybe if they have no faith, then one of them tries to advantage. He mentions that there was a camel. It's a story he read somewhere in a magazine. He says there was a camel and a fox. The fox said to the camel, "Let us live together as socialists." So to have a social life based on socialist values. زندگی اشتراکی. In the sense that there would be no personal ownership between us. Whatever we have is for both of us. So we shouldn't keep anything exclusive to us. And there should be no personal ownership. We can call each other friend, Rafiq. Everything belongs to both of us. So if there is my tail, this belongs to both of us. If there is your child, it belongs to both of us. So once the fox for a few days didn't have anything to eat and ate the child the baby camel, the child of the camel, and left the bones somewhere. This poor camel looked everywhere for her child and finally found the dead body of the child while was eaten. Only some bones were remaining. So she was crying that who has done this to my child? As soon as he said, my child, the fox said, look, you are not trained properly, you are not educated properly. Because you say, my child, it was our child. So, Ayatollah Mutahari says, if you want to turn man, means me, into ma, us, without understanding the way human beings behave and think and plan, then it can become so funny, like this story of fox and camel. So it's important to be careful about ownership. It's important to try to achieve collective identity, that is ma, we. But the problems are not just these. The problems are not just about properties, etc. We should have a good understanding of other issues and other values that we have that can help us in facing those challenges. Then we have a small, brief discussion as a kind of introduction to the School of Socialism, Existentialism. After Socialism, we start to talk about Existentialism. This is a very common or popular school in the 20th century and now beginning of 21st century, and they are exactly opposite to socialists, so two sides of the spectrum. In socialism, more attention is given to social aspects of human life, and they say that if we don't have personal properties, other issues will be sorted out. But in existentialism, more attention is given to personal values, like freedom, which is very important, freedom of will, freedom of thought, autonomy. So for them, it's very important that every single person makes his or her own decisions. They say insaan-i kaamil is the human being which is free from any kind of determinism, any kind of power. He is the one that can be absolutely free. His will should be free, his thoughts should be free. So for them, the main thing is azadi, or freedom. And even if they sometimes mention consciousness, but this is a prerequisite for azadi, or liberty or freedom. Some of them also believe, existentialists, some of them are theists, some are atheists. So some of them also believe that faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can reduce our humanity. Unfortunately, sometimes have this assumption, those who are not theists. He refers to some Farsi poems where the poet is Hafiz, famous Hafiz Shirazi. He says, غلام همت آنم که زیر چرخ کبود ز هر چه رنگ تعلق پذیرد آزاد است. I am servant of the ambition of the one who has freed himself or herself from any kind of belonging, anything that has any color of belonging. It's free, completely free. only one belonging still is there. مگر تعلق خاطر به ماه رخساری که خاطر همه غمها به مهر او شاد است. Except belonging to a beautiful face, that all the sad things, all the grief because of him would be happy. Who is that person? Maybe we can say Imam Mahdi. Maybe some people say they're spiritual, teacher or mentor. Maybe people use different ideas, but he says every belonging should stop except love. In another place he says فاش میگویم و از گفته خود دلشادم. I say it explicitly and I'm happy. I don't need to hide it. بنده عشقم و از هر دو جهان آزادم. I am the servant of love and I am free from both worlds. Neither I am working for dunya nor for akhirah. I'm just working for my beloved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we take love here, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But for existentialists, freedom is very important, even freedom from love. Hafiz says love is an exception. Ta'alluq khatir is bad, but love is good. These people say even love can bring problems, limitations. So for them, no limitation should be there. Inshallah, in the next session, he continues this discussion about existentialism. He explains more, and then he has a critical study of this school. For today, I stop here, and inshallah, if you have 2-3 questions, we can have it, and then inshallah, bi'iznillah, we can go back to the normal inshallah program. Just a moment. More than. That's one. Okay. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If you have any question, please put forward.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Dr. Javed Hassan Akhtar from Belagazi Khan, Pakistan.
MashaAllah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You said that in the next section we will discuss inshallah in detail existentialism.
Yes, existentialism, inshallah, next week. He will expand on this.
Just a query, one query. Is existentialism is relating to materialism or spiritualism?
Pardon?
Just in two words. Is existentialism is relating to materialism, materialistic, or spiritualism?
No, existentialism is a special philosophy, is a contemporary philosophy. Materialism is very old. Existentialists, some of them were even believers, and some were atheists. So there are two currents among existentialists. We will inshallah talk about it more. The main thing for them is human, individual freedom. Even many of them don't believe in moral principles. For example, one of them says that during war in France, when they were working for liberation from Nazis, so there was a son who had very old mother to look after, and also there was a need to defend their country, to liberate their country. So there was a conflict between moral principles here. One is to defend your country which is occupied, one is to look after your mother. So here, ethicists may have different ways of prioritizing one of these two principles over the other.
Okay.
But for existentialists, they say no, there is no general rule here. Just you have to be
Okay.
in the moment and then see what decision emerges in you. Inshallah, we talk about it. So they have very a specific approach. They don't have any
Inshallah.
general rule, and therefore two people may have two different decisions, and
Thank
both
you.
can be ethically right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Ahsan.
Yes, Sister Ranjan.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you?
Thank you.
Actually I watched lot of your videos on classes like Wajib al-Wujud and on Irfan. I really appreciate your speech on that, your classes on that. Whenever we feel we search on YouTube something like Irfan or on philosophy, we actually we don't have that much material. I'm talking about especially about the Shia Islam, but I really appreciate your own hard work and also respect. Pay my respect to all those who are working behind the scenes to for establishing these kinds of classes. Anyways, I have a general question. Can I ask a general question this time, or is it on this specific topic I have to ask the question?
I don't know. It's up to the moderator.
Yes, please go ahead. We don't have a president. Yeah. So actually, I am going for inshallah for Hajj
Mashhad
this year. For the niyabat of my grandmother. So actually, my question is that can I do my Hajj also here and also of my grandmother's Hajj? Is it possible or is it not possible?
Hajj wajib cannot be performed at the same time for two people.
Okay.
But if it is mustahab, then some maraja may allow, or maybe most of them, that it can be on behalf of few people. But Hajj wajib, no. But what you can do over there, for example, after you finish your Hajj and Umrah, everything, then you can do Umrah Mufradah. When you are in Mecca, you can go to Miqat and, again become Muhrim and do Umrah Mufradah. But it's not Hajj, and it's not accepted as Hajj Wajib, which is Hajjatul Islam. So every person who is Mustati has to perform at least once Hajj Tamattu. For people like us, we are outside, and this is Hajjatul Islam if it has all the conditions.
Yes, sir. So next, just one question, one little question, if
Sure.
I'm allowed to ask. Yes, sir. So actually, I gradually started my interest in philosophy, and literally, I was not interested. Some few back, 5-6 years back, I was not interested in philosophy. But with God's grace, I had a teacher here. Also, I went to Iran, and I also there is a philosopher or a teacher there, Ibrahim Zadeh. I actually listened to his videos also. I wanted to have a course I mean, a systematic course? Is there a systematic course towards understanding of philosophy? One of your courses was Bidayatul Hikmah, and actually I saw it on the YouTube. And then after that, what one needs to do towards his, understanding Hikmatul Ishraq, or you are the philosopher of that school, Mullah Sadra school. And if you are philosopher of Mullah Sadra school, how you will relate the two, Hikmatul Ishraq, Shuhrawardi's school of thought and Mullah Sadra's school of thought, and is it possible mixing both and getting something out of each of these great personalities?
Yeah. If you want to study properly Islamic philosophy, of course you need to study some logic also, mantiq. But with respect to philosophy, if you go to Shomali.net, then you have a tab called Islamic series. You come down, then there is logic and Islamic philosophy. So there is a course on Introduction to Logic based on Ayatollah Mutahhari's book, 9 lectures. Introduction to Philosophy, 7 lectures. Both are based on Ayatollah Mutahhari's book. And here you will be introduced to different schools, Mashhad, Ishraqiyun, and Hikmat Muta'ali. Then after that we have Islamic philosophy elementary, which is sometimes actually not very basic, but it's the first book. This is 33 lectures. You find all the links there. After that, Bidayatul Hikmah, 83 lectures. And then we have started this semester commentary on Manzuma, which is again for transcendent philosophy. Inshallah, with your du'as, we will start also Hikmatul Ishraq, which would be dedicated to studying the School of Illuminationist philosophy. But Hikmatul Muta'aliyah makes references to both Mashhad, because it's the way of putting all these things together along with Irfan and Quran in a synthetic, but not just mixing, taking the best of each school of philosophy by Mullah Sadra. But if people are interested...
Yes. So can I have your email number for correspondence, for guidance, so that I can pursue my level of study, even if I have to come physically at your place?
I am not, based in Qom. I'm just here now for visit now in Iran, but I'm in the UK. But most of our courses are right now online. If you want to contact me, you can contact me on my Facebook, inshallah. Because these lectures are going to be online, and I cannot share my personal email, but you can find me on Facebook, inshallah.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. May Allah bless you. Iltimas dua.
We don't have any further questions.
So okay.
Please make dua.
Okay. I need your du'as because I have some important issues that I need your du'as to be solved. So with 3 times on Man Yujib, we consider all hajat of Imam Zaman and Mu'mineen, and inshallah we will make du'as then. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم بالقرآن المستحكم وبفاطمة وأبيها وبعدها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا أرحم الراحمين يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك واكفنا يا قاضي الحاجات ويا كافي المهمات إنك على كل شيء قدير. O Allah, on this day of Jum'ah, Please send your salutations to Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And please send your maghfirah and rahmah to all mu'mineen and mu'minat who have passed away from beginning to the end, especially those who have rights upon us. Please give shifa to all people who are ill, especially those who have very difficult illnesses, those who have no hope in medical treatment for them. Please give them shifa. بحق محمد وآل Muhammad. Those who suffer from poverty, please give them abundance of rizq. Those who suffer from loneliness, please give them lots of good friends and support from community. Please give our elderly members of community more dignity and strength and enable us all to appreciate them. Please keep our families strong and united. Please keep our children on the right path and well oriented. Please keep Ras al-Maraji and ulama and teachers and volunteers and all our sacred institutions. And please make our Imam Zaman happy with us and include us among the people who work hard for preparation for his coming. And please make the last moment of our life the best moment of our life. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. Inshallah, I will pray for you and please you pray also for me. Iltimas dua.